Every credit card issuer has its fanboys, but today we're throwing all of that out the window. Welcome to the Hater's Guide to Credit Card Issuers, where I break down everything wrong with the biggest banks in the game. Before we get into it, I want to give a big shout out to Daniel Braun for the inspiration behind this video. He made a part 1 and a part 2 Hater's Guide to Credit Cards, and that was based on the original 2024 Hater's Guide to Credit Cards post on Reddit, which was one of the most popular posts on Reddit credit cards of all time. If you haven't watched either of Daniel's videos yet, I'll link them below in the description. They're great, so I encourage you to check them out after. Today, I'm doing a slight adaptation on that concept and focusing on credit card issuers as a whole and what they have wrong. And from pointless perks to terrible customer service, there is a lot to work with here and no bank is safe. So let's get right into some negativity. We'll start with Chase. Now, Chase is a bank that is considered the golden child of the credit card world, and even for someone like me with multiple Chase cards in my wallet, this is a bit of a tough pill to swallow, but even I am not above admitting that they've got some serious flaws. In fact, I'm dubbing them the overlap overlords in this video because why not give each bank a silly nickname just because? And overlap is the first thing I have to hate on. Chase Sapphire Reserve, Chase Sapphire Preferred, Chase Freedom Flex, Chase Freedom Unlimited. What do all of these cards have in common? Well, they're gonna get you 3% or 3x back on dining. Why does Chase have so many cards that get you 3% back on dining? I'm not sure. But what happens with all of Chase's overlapping categories is instead of a powerful streamlined setup, you're forced to add all of these different credit cards for maybe just a slight boost in one specific area, whereas the rest of the Chase cards that you hold likely just overlap. The next problem I have is that there's no good grocery or gas card in the Chase lineup. Somehow, one of the biggest banks out there still hasn't figured out that people spend a substantial amount of money buying groceries and gas. Sure, the Sapphire Preferred has an online grocery category that gets you 3% back, but how practical is that? I love trying to maximize earnings categories, and I still haven't found a way to make the 3% online groceries work in my life. Your only real option is the Freedom Flex, where you can get 5% back for a quarter, but even that is capped at just $1,500, which is far less than most people or families spend on groceries in a quarter. And the other 3 quarters, well, unfortunately, you're probably out of luck. And finally, Chase, can we please get a good catch-all card? Giving us 1.5x to work with on the Freedom Unlimited, but then having to have other cards to pair that with transfer partners, that's just a whole lot of work for not that much benefit. I'm not asking for much, but please release a card that gets you 2x back like pretty much every other issuer. Now we're gonna let Chase go and turn our attention over to American Express, which I'm dubbing the coupon clown show. Good old American Express is the king of the luxury credit card. However, if you start to peel back that shine on the Platinum card, you're gonna realize there are some real cracks underneath. And honestly, people who get American Express cards may not care about the cracks. They may just wanna show off that they're banking with the most premium credit card issuer. However, that doesn't mean that there's not a lot wrong with Amex. Let's start with the obvious. Somehow we've convinced ourselves that paying $700 for a credit card is a justifiable annual fee. I'm looking directly at the Platinum card and at the Delta SkyMiles Reserve. I might as well also throw the Marriott Bonvoy Brilliant in there because $650 for that one is not far off. Those cards all make the Amex Gold card, which recently jumped up to $325 for the pleasure of holding, look absolutely cheap. When you consider anything but an Amex credit card, you'll realize that competitors have almost the same thing for half or even 2/3 of the same cost. Technically, the right person can get value from Amex credit cards, but sometimes to do that, it may feel like you're taking on a part-time job. My next gripe about Amex is that each card is slowly turning into a coupon book. Oh, here's $10 to $15 for Uber. Well, thanks Amex, but the credit expires at the end of the month. Oh, and guess what? You can't roll that over to the next month, so if you haven't found a way to use it, you've just lost that chunk of value. Here's a $10 dining credit. But wait, you can't use that for any dining expenses. They've got to be at specific restaurants. Oh no, you don't live in one of the most 20 populous cities in the United States. Unfortunately, we only have one restaurant in your town that may qualify. Amex, could we please tone it down with the nickel and diming through the credits and maybe cool it on the annual fee hikes for just a few years? My next gripe is the lifetime language on welcome bonuses. If you've gotten an Amex card, you can kiss the chance at getting another welcome bonus on that same card goodbye for the rest of your life. Going hand in hand with this is the family language. By the time most of us figure out what families the different Amex cards are in, there's a good chance you've probably applied for a higher level Amex card and burned any chance of a sign-up bonus on the lower cards beneath that. You have to be either really lucky or a credit card expert from day one not to make that mistake. Sadly, too many people find out about that rule until it's just too late. And the last thing that I'm sure a lot of you are just a little annoyed with is the acceptance internationally. Want to pull the gold card out at an international restaurant? Oh, sorry, we don't take Amex here. If that sounds like a common story that you may have heard before, it's because Amex just is not accepted really at the places that it probably should be. Let's move on to another well-known favorite of the channel, Capital One. And boy, do I have some issues with this bank. Capital One should rebrand their slogan to the High Hopes, Low Approvals Bank, because that's essentially what they seem to do. If you have a Capital One card in your wallet, take a second and appreciate your good fortune, because the fact that you were able to get approved for a card is a minor miracle in and of itself. Make sure not to be too good at managing your cards. People with an 800 credit score and perfect payment history may not get approved for Capital One cards with no explanation whatsoever. Oh, you have a few other credit cards from different issuers? Well, don't get your hopes up that you can get your hands on a Capital One Venture X, because Capital One has probably flagged you as someone who's not a profitable customer and therefore doesn't belong in the Capital One family. Another frustrating situation for many people out there. Finally, Capital One is going to kick you when you're down, because if you apply for a Capital One credit card, you're going to get the infamous 3 hard pulls from all of the major credit card bureaus. I hope your credit score enjoys that application. My next big gripe is the big beefy lineup of Capital One cards. If you've ever had the chance to visit the Capital One website, you'll probably be scrolling for quite some time as you review all of the different credit cards they have. Fortunately, I can save you some time here and tell you today they really only have 2 to 3 good ones, and I consider the Venture and the Venture Rewards card in there, as well as the Savor One, as a great $0 annual fee dining card with some other nice elevated multipliers. Once you get past that, it is a wasteland of bad cards. Somehow Capital One still promotes the Bass Pro Shops card and the REI Co-op card, and additionally, they've gone in on cards like the Kohl's card, which I only know one person on the internet that actually uses and gets value from. Finally, my last big issue is that good domestic redemptions are hard to find. You better hope that the stars are aligning if you want to use one of Capital One's international transfer partners to try to book a domestic flight. Technically, they say it's possible. In practice, is it going to happen on the trip that you need to book? Probably not. So don't depend on those miles being used through transfer partners to get yourself a valuable domestic redemption. Good luck. Let me move on to Wells Fargo, which is the shady banker special. Do I even need to explain the reasons to hate on Wells Fargo? Let's start with a solid reputation for a history of defrauding customers. Wells Fargo has been caught in a huge scandal of opening fake accounts for customers, and yet they still proudly roll themselves out there and want your business. Additionally, Wells Fargo has dipped their toe into the credit card travel game. However, they've only done so with just 7 transfer partners. So really, what's the point in accumulating points with Wells Fargo if you can't really send them out for outsized value? Now, the only good thing I can say about Wells Fargo is that the credit card community has used their Bilt Mastercard so successfully that it's reportedly losing $10 million a month. Unfortunately, this is probably going to just end up as another reason to hate on them, because they'll probably take away all the valuable benefits and earning perks and make the card so impossible to use in an effort to return it to profitability. You Citi fans out there probably thought that Citi and some of their valuable credit cards were going to avoid this list. Unfortunately, you would be wrong. One of the most hateable things about Citi is somehow a weirdly high amount of their customer accounts get flagged for fraud by Citi itself when nothing is going on. People are commonly reporting getting their Citi accounts locked for fraud protection indefinitely, with seemingly no way out of it and no way to fix it. There's an old joke, probably because people are comparing the Citi 2% double cash with the Wells Fargo 2% active cash, that you're choosing between the lesser of both evils. Are you going to go with the bank that fraudulently opens a fake account? Or are you going to go with the bank that calls fraud on your account and closes it when there is no fraud? Good luck with your choice there. The last thing I have to say is that I will give credit where credit is due. Citi's cards do have some really impressive earning rates. However, if you're in the travel side of the credit card game, what are you going to do with their limited list of transfer partners? No Hyatt, no United, no Delta, just a foreign list of transfer partners that most people probably will never actually use. Let's move on to the fee frenzy, otherwise known as our friends at US Bank. I couldn't end today's video without commenting on probably my least favorite credit card issuer out there, US Bank. And to me, it starts and ends with fees. Could US Bank add any more fees if they tried? I'd be interested to find out because I think they have everything covered. Account maintenance fees, inactivity fees, ATM fees, paper statement fees, the works. If there is a way out there to charge you for something, US Bank has already thought of it and is probably trying to do it. I'm not sure if anybody who wasn't blessed to get a legal degree could figure out their way through US Bank's terms and conditions to find a way to hold an account or a credit card at the bank and bypass all of the different fees they love to charge. Another thing that I can hate on with US Bank is some big promises around some impressive cards, but poor delivery and execution. The US Bank Smartly Visa has a ton of potential. 4% unlimited cash back. That sounds almost too good to be true, and if US Bank could pull it off, it would be. However, you have to compromise left, right, and center by tying yourself into all of these different US Bank products, probably most of which you'll be disappointed with, just to get the Smartly Visa. To add insult to injury there are already rumors that the Smartly Visa has been so good for some people that US Bank is considering nerfing it. So I feel terrible for you if you went through all of these hoops and efforts to get the Smartly Visa up and running, just for US Bank to pull the rug out from underneath you 6 months after opening it. And my last gripe is that the US Bank Altitude Reserve was one of those rare gem credit cards where it just had so much opportunity and so much going for it. What does US Bank decide to do? Well, they canceled that card for application. I'd love to see them replace it with something comparable, but we're still waiting on that replacement. So there you have it, the hater's guide to credit card issuers. Every bank has its strengths, and some of them do have their major flaws. Now I will say that I had a ton of fun making this video, and pretty much every other video on my channel is talking about credit cards and the most positive ways to extract value from the banks without giving them your money back. That's what I prefer to do, and there are far more positives from playing the credit card game than there are negatives, but sometimes it's fun to poke fun at the banks and highlight some of the biggest downsides out there that we all face in this game. Please don't be afraid to continue to pile on in the comments. Let me know which one of these banks annoys you the most.